All right, this is the third and final repair on this Kitchenaid dishwasher. You can see it's not washing anything. I did a couple other repairs for an overflow and not draining issue. Now I'm going to tackle this not spraying issue. So I've already done some of the basics like cleaning the sprayer arms, cleaning the little basket filter inside, just the basic stuff. But when you turn this thing on, it doesn't sound like it's running. There's no spraying going on of any sort. And the issue is the pump motor. So you could hear the pump motor hum, but it's not spraying. So I've already turned off the power in the basement at the breaker. I've already removed the kick panel on the front, obviously. Now for me, I don't need to disconnect the water. You might have to if your water lines aren't far enough for you to pull your dishwasher all the way out of the sort of little hidey hole that it's in. But that's not my situation. I've got plenty of cabling and plenty of hose. So I'm going to take off the two screws that hold the drainage line. There's a couple of screws on the side that need to come out that allow your dishwasher to be pulled forward. And on this KitchenAid model, you could actually come in through what would be the door frame sort of and remove those screws. So there's a couple little ports there that you can reach a screwdriver in. So I've already done a few other fixes. So right now I'm going to go straight to the pump and see what's going on. Likely it's easier to have two people to put the dishwasher on the side, but obviously I can do it myself. And this is the pump in question, this little guy here. So it's connected with two rubber hoses. I'm going to take one clip off each of the hoses so I can pull the motor free. And then there's a discharge line that needs to be disconnected. And that's pretty much it. There's actually no screws, nuts, or bolts that hold this thing on. There's just this big anti-vibration piece at the rear, and then really it's just sort of resting in place. It's not really held in tightly by anything. And to get these factory clamps off, I'm just using a flathead screwdriver to give them a little twist and get them moving, and then they just sort of pop off once you've given them that twist. Now they're non-reusable, and that is a problem, and I'll show that later, but it's difficult to find these clamps, and you might need to buy the factory clamp. And in fact, I do end up buying the factory clamps later. And just like the suction hose, I take one clip off the high pressure hose and remove that as well. And then really it's just a matter of peeling the sort of rubber, rubber bushing that the motor sits in for the anti-vibration piece, and then just pulling everything forward. Now you don't need to disconnect any of the electrical wires to pull this out, the 6 inches that's required to pull the motor apart, but you will likely need to remove that discharge line that I've still got hooked up there. And the other thing I do sort of mid project here is remove the little drip tray and the float, just to get those out of the way because they're kind of getting tangled up with some of the wires and stuff. So that piece probably could have been removed first as well, and then I'll just pull the discharge line off the pump, and then water goes everywhere. Fortunately, I do have a towel handy, but obviously too late, it's all over the floor. Now to pull the filter housing, I guess is what this is, off the motor, you just need to remove the two Torx screws. Unfortunately, I don't have a Torx screwdriver. It would definitely be handy, but once those two screws are out, the plastic housing just pulls rearward just like that. And really the cause of my main problem with this dishwasher, why it's not spraying, why it's doing nothing, is about to be revealed here. And you can see that the motor spins freely. There's no issues with that. It works fine. Surprisingly and thankfully, it didn't burn out when I was trying to troubleshoot the dishwasher. But here's the problem. There's a filter in this motor that has exploded. Now I don't initially know that the filter exploded, but I was just like, oh, it's really dirty, and there's a bunch of crud inside of the filter housing there, which is a mixture of, I don't know, it's gross. Obviously it's just dishwasher crud. Is it paper, is it fat, corn, food, whatever it is. So I thought that was the issue. I thought it was just clogged when I was removing things, but no, the real issue is that the filter has exploded. So I do go to the sink and clean the filter because I thought it was just jammed up, but no, it's actually destroyed, and that's what's keeping the pump from spinning. And I'll show that in a second. But just when you pull that piece out, should you choose to remove that filter from your pump to see what's going on, just take note of how you pull it apart. So you can see that the filter is non-existent in certain areas, and it is a metal filter. So once it explodes, it freezes your pump up. So here's a new one. It cost a lot. It was like $170 for this thing. It was ridiculous. So I'm not impressed with the price on this thing, and I'm really not impressed with a filter that spins, and if it has damage, it'll seize up your whole pump. That is, in my humblest opinion, a poor design. But whatever, I own this thing now, and this dishwasher is only 3 years old. Just to put that out there. So again, you really want to make sure you know which way this thing comes apart, just so you get it in there correctly. This little plastic ring goes in first into the pump, and there's a little cutout where everything goes. You basically, you sort of can't put it in wrong, but I suppose you put it in the wrong order. There's a little tab on this thing, and it needs to face out. So I have it facing in, and you can see that it doesn't seat properly if the tab is facing in. So that tab has to face outward, and it goes right into the same slot that accommodates the plastic ring, the first plastic ring. So you can see the tab facing out. So this is where the metal spinny filter goes on, and it needs to mesh with that one little plastic tab as well, and it just slides on. There's not too much to it. I found that it's best to hold the entire unit vertical like that, otherwise the little filter kind of moves around a little bit. So just tip the motor up and then put the filter housing over the filter. And the filter housing also has a little plastic tab that has to go in the right spot. And obviously you'll know it's the right spot because there's only 2 screws, and they have to obviously screw through the filter housing and screw into the motor as well. And the other thing I did was just clean up around some of the gaskets. Now this is the problem with these mechanical hose clamps. They are a proprietary size. I found that I couldn't go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Canadian Tire. Nobody had the same size as the ones being used on this. So you can see that they're small, the factory ones, and they need to fit into a rubber groove. And these ones don't. I'm going to come back later and replace the high pressure hose. I'll do a separate video on that. And I also have the mechanical hose clamp on order for the suction line. Again, really annoying that they have a proprietary sized mechanical hose clamp to use on these things, because they just don't fit correctly onto that rubber hose. I do run the dishwasher for about 3 or 4 days with these oversized hose clamps on, but just to ensure that they don't leak in the future or that I don't have any issues, I did order the $13 mechanical hose clamp instead of the $1 mechanical hose clamp that I'm using in this video. So I do come back. I will have another video on that pretty shortly. So once I got the motor put back in place, the hoses put back on, and the mechanical hose clamps in place, I do put the discharge line back where it needs to go, and there's just a little black clip that goes in place that holds everything together. So I'll put that in place, and then really that's the bulk of it. Overall, it is pretty easy to get into the motor on this thing and replace that filter. I'm sure it would take a 2-hour service call plus the $170 for that part. So to have someone come in and do this would be outrageously expensive, in my opinion. So I'm glad I was able to do it myself, but I'm really not impressed with this dishwasher. And I don't know that I would buy a Kitchenaid dishwasher that has the filter inside of the motor again. I think that's just asking for failure. So flip the dishwasher over. Obviously, just make sure all the hoses and electrical wires are in a good position so they don't get crushed by the dishwasher, and then slide it back into place. Get on the stomach with the light there and make sure that none of the hoses are crushed or the electrical wires are pinching or anything like that. And then reattach the discharge line inside the cabinet, turn the water on, turn the breaker on, and run a cycle. Now, this is obviously a voiceover, so I know that everything is going to work fine, but I ran this dishwasher at least 10 times and it works fine now that that filter's changed. So that filter exploding in my dishwasher was what caused all the other problems, and it was quite an ordeal to fix this thing. I'm really happy that I didn't have to call in a service call to get it done, but I'm really unhappy with a 3-year-old dishwasher essentially turning into a hand grenade. Anyway, one more video to follow on the dishwasher, and it's going to be me replacing the high pressure hose and 3 of these proprietary mechanical hose clamps that I also dislike. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Obviously, if you're having problems with your dishwasher, hopefully this helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe.